In the compact SUV world, Volkswagen was pretty late to the party with this model, the original Volkswagen Tiguan. First introduced in America in late 2007, it was very much known as the GTI of SUVs due to its turbocharged engine, sporty driving dynamics, and premium interior. Sales were lukewarm at best. Now, of course, Volkswagen followed it up with an all-new second-generation Tiguan introduced in 2017, this model here. This is where the company's sales pretty much exploded to over 100,000 units. It had less power from its turbocharged engine, but it also had a lot more interior space with an available third row. Consumers loved it, enthusiasts hated it because it just had a much more boring driving dynamic versus the previous model. Now, of course, last year, Volkswagen introduced an all-new 2025 Tiguan, the third generation, and this model very much is the Goldilocks of the family because it's a little bit smaller than the second generation, but underneath the hood, Volkswagen has supplemented that with more power, and for 2026, we are seeing the most powerful production Tiguan ever introduced, known as the Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo, with up to 268 horsepower underneath the hood. So today we're actually out here in Detroit, Michigan, because we're finally able to get behind the wheel of the new Tiguan Turbo. And the big question I want answered, has Volkswagen managed to find their mojo back and introduce budget Audis to mainstream buyers? Stay tuned to find out. So if you guys are a driving enthusiast and you love your GTI, this is, remember, a four-door hot hatch, Volkswagen essentially wants you to move to a Tiguan if you need more space, because while this car is super practical, it actually still has a tight back seat and a small trunk area. That's where the all-new generation Tiguan comes into play. And for 2026, we are going to be talking about the Tiguan Turbo, which is confusing, I know, because the Tiguan already comes standard with a turbo engine. In fact, it's had a turbo engine ever since the first generation came out, but it's never had this turbo engine, because what you're looking at here is Volkswagen's latest E888 Evo 5. So it's technically in its fifth generation. And this powertrain actually makes more power than the GTI that we have sitting next to it. This is making 268 horsepower, which is actually the same horsepower as the Audi Q5's 2-liter turbo. It does make less torque than the Audi at 258 pound-feet. Regardless, this has 67 more horsepower versus the base engine, which is what the car launched with, what they still offer, making only 201 horsepower. It all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission, and Volkswagen only offers this top turbo engine on the SEL R-Line. So it's gonna come standard with the company's 4Motion all-wheel drive system. Now, fuel economy is rated at 22 in the city and 29 on the highway, about 25 combined. It's actually the same fuel economy combined figure as the base output engine, or output of this engine. And it has around a 15.5-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around 350-ish miles of range on a full tank. And thankfully, Volkswagen has tuned this engine to produce that power on regular gas, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, the secret to this engine making more power is Volkswagen says they put on a larger turbo with more boost, up to 37.7 pounds of max boost pressure, which is around 12 more than the base engine. And they also said they've redesigned the internals, made it stronger, of course, retuned the ECU. So this engine is going to be the performance option for those of you who have a GTI. Now, in terms of the performance, Volkswagen doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. We got 8.4 seconds in the base powertrain. I'll be curious to see what this model gets when we get out on the road. Top speed should be around 125 miles an hour. The Tiguan can still tow. Sadly, the tow rating remains 1,800 pounds with all-wheel drive, 1,500 pounds with front-wheel drive. This model is a little bit heavier, around 100 pounds heavier at just over 4,000 pounds. Although regardless of this weight here, this generation technically got lighter by around 170 pounds compared to the second generation we showed you in the introduction. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here and talk about the exterior styling of this vehicle. Now, first of all, this is the all-new third generation, which was first introduced last year. And in terms of the design, you really won't be able to tell that this is the 2026 model year. This model that we're showing you here is the SEL R-Line, which only comes with the turbo upgraded engine. It's painted in avocado green, which was a new color last year, and it certainly looks good in this bright Michigan sun. You can see the SEL R-Line trim includes their upgraded lighting. So you have the illuminated Volkswagen logo, the LED light bar that's very trendy. You have these IQ Light adaptive swiveling LED headlights with LED low and high beams, all-weather LED fog lights as well. And you can see down here at the lower fascia, there are some functional openings, lots of gloss black, which looks nice with the avocado green. There is kind of like a silver matte finish here at the front splitter, which tries to make it look a little bit like a skid plate garnish piece. But overall, this car very much gives me almost like baby Touareg vibes. You guys remember the Touareg? It was a premium SUV, first launched in 2004. and it certainly looks good. I've been seeing the new Tiguan everywhere, at least around my local area in Pennsylvania, and I've also seen some around here in Detroit. It's been doing extremely well for Volkswagen. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see this car is the right size, because remember, the first generation was much too small at around 174 inches long. The second generation was much too large at 186 inches long. This model is around an inch and a half shorter. It rides on the same 109.9 inch wheelbase with a 184.6 inch overall length. So this is a little bit longer than something like the RAV4, but about the same size as the CR-V, so it's a good length. You can see this trim, the turbo trim, only comes with the big 20-inch wheels, which are similar in design to the wheels on the SE R-Line Black, but you can see they have a two-tone look with the machine outer spoke. It's got like a really cool looking 5-spoke design. It's riding on a 255 by 40 R20-inch all-season Pirelli tire. Brakes are 13.4 inches in the front, which are the same size as the other turbo models, or the other turbo branded models, but the rear brakes on this model grows to 12.2 inches, which is actually the same size as the rear brakes on the GTI. So that's one of the upgrades that they've made. The suspension is still all independent. It's non-adaptive or air. Volkswagen says this model has around 7 inches of ground clearance, which is not a lot. I'll be curious to see if Volkswagen does a more off-road oriented model at some point. I like the wheel arch trim here, how it's like a gloss black, but it's also not overdone. And you can see that avocado green with the gloss black just really pairs nicely with the styling details of this trim. You can see there's an R badge here to let you know it's the more sportier model. And then my test car also has, for an extra $400, the black roof option. So you have the black painted side mirrors, which are power folding, along with the black roof, the panel sunroof that also opens up to vent air, which is a nice touch. And you have the silver chrome-ish roof rails, which is good if you guys want to put some stuff on the roof. I also love how the back windows opened up completely. They roll down all the way as opposed to having like a cutoff on some cars in this class. And then you can see there's some chrome trim that kind of goes along and follows the D pillar over here, and then follow me over to the rear. This is really only where you're going to be able to tell that this is the new 2026 model year, because aside from the same design for the taillights, you can see it has that full LED light bar. It's got the illuminated Volkswagen logo. I love the kind of textured three-dimensional look almost of the taillights with the LED turn signals. You still have a rear spoiler back here, wiper that kind of sits at the bottom of the rear glass. There's a subtle little turbo badge here. So this is your only indication on the outside, really, that this is the 2026 model year, which is kind of silly again because there's already a turbo engine in the base models. I don't love the rear bumper diffuser. Has this kind of fake vent looking piece here. I think it would have looked better if they had cut this off and kind of stopped it here and just made this portion body colored. I also would have liked to see Volkswagen do an exposed exhaust system on this car. You can see the turbo model here has the same, hidden exhaust. There's technically dual pipes underneath that's tucked away. If you guys want an exposed exhaust, Audi will happily sell you a Q5, which technically has that dual rectangular exhaust exposed outlet look. Now, this trim, also being the top trim, includes a power liftgate, which is also a hands-free functionality. And this is also where I'm a little confused, because in 2025, Volkswagen was quoting the cargo at up to like 59 cubic feet of space. This year, they've, I guess, redone the measurements. They had a third party come in and redo the measurements. Now they're saying this model has around 34 cubic feet of storage space with the seats up. Remember, this generation lost the third row. If you want to fold down the back seats, you can actually do so by just pulling on these little levers back here, these release levers. Volkswagen now says you get up to 69 cubic feet of storage space with all the seats folded, which again, last year they were saying it had 59 cubic feet of storage space. Now they're saying it has 69. So I'm thinking they just changed the way it measured, because there's clearly no differentiation between a 2025 and a 2026 model year. If you look underneath here, you can see there is a temporary spare tire with all the tools that you need, a little bit of extra storage to the side, and a little bit of extra storage underneath here. But overall, in terms of cargo flexibility compared to its rivals, the Tiguan is a little bit smaller, but it's also a little bit smaller versus the previous generation. So the exterior of the all-new third-generation Tiguan was already immensely attractive, but when you get inside, this is where Volkswagen really spent the money here into making you think that you bought an Audi. In fact, I'd argue that this interior is even nicer than even the all-new generation Q5, especially when you look at some of the features that Volkswagen throws in. Now, first of all, this color combination of the avocado green with this kind of Sierra brown two-tone interior. This trim level also comes with their upgraded Verena premium leather with the quilted stitching and the contrast piping and stitching as well. overall, it looks phenomenal with the green exterior. These seats also adjust in 12 different ways. They're heated, ventilated, and offer a 10-point massage feature. The massage function on this car is actually on both the front seats, and I dare you to try to find another vehicle in this class that offers massaging seats. Now, granted, you have to buy this top trim level to get it, but it's actually a better massage than I've tested in some Audi products, so that's very, very impressive. But let's go ahead and hop inside this cabin with its 7 inches of ground clearance. It has a really easy step-in height. As I shut the door, the door also has a very solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on the updated MQB Evo architecture, which is technically different than the PPC platform that also underpins the Audi Q5. Now, here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see it's Volkswagen's latest Intelligent Access key. It's actually a nice size key that feels pretty high quality. I don't love all the chrome and shiny piano black plastic on it, but it has your typical buttons here for lock, power liftgate, unlock, remote start, panic. Remote start comes if you guys go on the SE, go for the SE trims and up. Start stop button is right here by this little experience dial, but put your foot on the brake, you can see the engine fires up. This is not a mild hybrid or a hybrid, so it has a traditional starter noise, and the engine really doesn't sound any different than the base turbo engine. When you rev it up, you can see it's got a pretty soft 3900 limiter, and it has that typical 4-cylinder drone. We'll talk about the way this car drives later on in the driving scene. Now, in terms of the materials, let's go ahead and mention that. Now, the door panels you can see on this top trim includes some soft touch injection molded plastic with faux stitching. There's like a piano black plastic area here with silver painted plastic door handles. This is actually illuminated. It's part of their ambient lighting system. And then you can see that brown leather carries over here, where it's nice and padded where you rest your elbows. Window controls, one touch up down for all 4, along with your power window control or power mirror controls. Down here it is hard touch plastic, but you do have some nice additional storage there. And then the steering wheel, you can see the steering wheel is a nice steering wheel. This is Volkswagen's latest steering wheel without the silly touch sensitive buttons. So I love how there's traditional hard buttons here for the cruise control, for the heated steering wheel, for the display where you can adjust. The wheel itself also offers a manual tilt, telescoping, where you can get a pretty good comfortable driving position. The one new addition this year for just this trim are the addition of the paddles. So now you have these little plastic paddles where you can control the 8-speed auto directly from the wheel. That's a nice touch. It's again included to kind of show off the performance intentions of this model, but overall I like the flat bottom design. The wheel itself has a nice 9-3 grip with perforated leather. It feels good in your hands. And then in terms of the rest of the dash, this is where again Volkswagen went all out here to really show you that they want to be taken as almost like a budget Audi, because the materials from the door panel carries over onto the dash. We have a soft touch injection molded plastic with the contrast faux stitch. This right here you can see is actually American walnut. This is real wood trim, which you don't typically find again in a mainstream SUV. This panel here is piano black, and then you can see there's also like kind of like a star pattern here for the LED ambient lighting. There's some silver trim here, some real brown leather over here with the contrast white stitching and piping, which looks nice. And then if you guys go for this top trim, you have the biggest display for the Tiguan, which is actually the biggest display that's tied with the GMC Terrain at 15 inches. The lower trims of the Tiguan will still have a 12.9-inch display, which is the largest standard display in the segment. This houses their new MIB Ford software, so where it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto that's wireless. You can see the graphics and resolution are fantastic. You can go into, I guess, your Apple or to the widget screen here where you can see all your usual sources. You can also change the ambient lighting. The seats, you can see I can adjust the massage functionality, or I can go to several different types of massages. And this is, again, a genuine massage that will rival even the more expensive luxury brands, including Audi. So this is very impressive. It's also included on the passenger side. Of course, the car has built-in GPS as well. You can go to the map display. The map display isn't super special. It's not like the Google map from Audi, but most of you will just end up using your smartphone anyways and pulling up Google Maps. You can see that looks amazing with the satellite view. And then you can see the driver faces a standard 10.25-inch display here, which is slightly customizable. It works well with the head-up display. This is a little on the smaller side, but it is nice how at least the digital display is standard. Your drive mode or your transmission selector is this little stalk over here. If I twist it toward me, it goes into reverse. There's your area view where it's a 360 camera. This is the only trim to give you the 360 camera. Backup camera is standard. You can see the graphic and resolution is pretty much the class norm. It also includes active park assist with parking sensors, cross traffic braking. Push it forward, that's where it goes into drive. There's the front camera system, and then push the end of this to go into park. So this right here freed up some space so you could have a bigger center console storage area. You can see the car actually shut off there because it does include start stop. You can basically turn it off via a button in the dash. And you can see here you have traditional air vents, which is nice. These are the touch sliders to control the tri-zone climate control. This is the only trim to give you tri-zone. All the other trims come with a dual zone. There's even like a fresh air mode where you can actually turn on an air filtration system. So that's really, again, upscale stuff. Down here you can see you've got two big cup holders, a nice little storage compartment here. You can also, actually I lied, you can't actually close that, but that's still, you know, a really nice design here where you have additional storage. And then this right here is your kind of, it controls a few things. So you can basically use this as a volume knob, and you can also push down and go into your drive mode selectors. So you can see there's where you can access your different drive mode experience, where you can go into, it looks like 6 different drive modes, including a custom mode. There's also, if you switch there into atmospheres, you can actually adjust your ambient lighting. So this is included if you guys go for the SE trims and up. This is nice how Volkswagen was listening. They gave us an actual dial. So if you don't want to use a little touch dial there for the volume, you can use this easily. And you can see there's the volume knob. It kind of switches back. And I also like how there's a little screen here. I also love how this screen, it's actually touch sensitive as well. So this is really high tech stuff. Wasn't expecting to find something like that. It also feels really high quality from, you know, when you start to, you know, I guess adjust the volume for this knob. You can see there's an electronic parking brake. Your wireless phone charging pad is here, where it fits my iPhone 16 Pro Max easily. There's 2 USB-C charging ports there, nice padded armrest. And then if I open this up, you can see there's a little bit of a storage shelf there. If you open that up or pull that out, you can see it's kind of connected with this little area. So it's a pretty deep center console storage area that also houses the USB charging ports. Above me, you can see the panoramic sunroof is a great feature. It's standard on this trim. It's available as an option on the SE for $1,200 extra. It also opens up to vent air. There's a retractable shade and wind deflector. Pretty good headroom in here. You can see there's a woven material for the headliner, LED map lighting, of course, all the usual high-tech stuff. And then this model is the only trim to come with their 12-speaker Harman Kardon stereo. If you guys are an audiophile, you're really gonna like the sound system. The bass or the lower trims will have just a 7-speaker Volkswagen branded audio system. I haven't heard that yet, but this model with the Harman definitely sounds good. The glove box you can see is damped and lined with, or not lined with felt. It's a bin style. It offers additional storage. So overall, you know, the Tiguan really, I think, stepped up their game in terms of technology, in terms of features, in terms of storage solutions, and especially in terms of build quality, because this car truly does feel like it has a nicer cabin than some newer Audi products. But let's go ahead and hop into that backseat area, and I can show you guys just how good this vehicle functions as a family vehicle, because again, Volkswagen wants you to replace your GTI with something like this. If you guys have, you know, kids, if you have more stuff you need to put into the vehicle. The one thing, however, they lost compared to the previous generation, which had the third row, is no more sliding rear seats. These do not slide forward and back. They also don't offer a recline function anymore. So you can basically just fold them down, creates a flat load floor. It's actually a pretty flat load floor. So I do wish that they didn't get rid of the actual recline function, but these seats you can see are covered in the same beautiful high quality premium leather with the two-tone look. As I get back here, you can see the space. Once I shut the door, there's around 40 inches of legroom back here. 40 inches is near the top of the segment. There isn't, however, a flat floor for the middle passenger, but you do have 2 USB-C charging ports, heated rear seats, of course, tri-zone climate, rear seat air vents. You have 2 map pockets there, which is a nice touch. The material quality, sadly, is hard touch plastic, so they did downgrade it compared to the front seat. There's also no retractable shades. You do find that in some competitors like the Nissan Rogue. It is nice and padded here, and the window controls are still one touch up, down. For back here, more storage down here, of course, which is a nice touch. And then you can see there's an armrest, folds down to give you 2 cup holders. And then in terms of the headroom space, when I have this, when I'm sitting all the way back, I have a solid maybe 2 inches of additional clearance, so it's not bad. The sunroof obviously takes up the space, so if you want more headroom, check out a baser model without the sunroof. But overall, if you plan to use the Tiguan as a family vehicle, the second row legroom is basically as large as the previous generation. You just lose the sliding and reclining second row seats, which honestly, I think a lot of people are gonna be happy, especially if you need to put car seats back here. So here we are finally behind the wheel of the 2026 Tiguan Turbo, which is kind of a silly name because all of them were turbocharged, but this model has 268 horsepower. And I want to see really quick what we can get here 0 to 60 wise. Ooh. Well, Rob, we got 6.94 seconds in this car. That is a lot faster because remember, that light changed super fast. I didn't get a chance to say everything I wanted to say. The last Tiguan 2025 SEL R-Line that we tested did it in 8.4 seconds. So 6.9 is much, much quicker. And that's basically the number that I was kind of expecting Volkswagen to get with this car. Let's try one more run here since there's nobody behind us. Brake torque it. No launch control, but you can really feel the extra 67 horsepower in this car. It actually feels properly fast now. 7.17 seconds there. Now that's with it on perfectly level ground. So 6.9 earlier where it was a little bit slightly downhill. So this is a much more acceptable time. So basically, if you guys pull up next to a Toyota RAV4 hybrid or a CR-V hybrid, this car should be able to keep up, if not be a little bit quicker. But remember, this model is not electrified whatsoever. Volkswagen says they are working on a a hybrid version of the Tiguan at some point. We have no idea when it's going to be coming out. We have no idea what the positioning of that car is going to be, if it's going to be above the Tiguan Turbo or in between the base engine and this model here. But regardless, this powertrain finally gives the Tiguan the performance it needs to match the handling dynamics. Because remember, in the intro, we were talking about the first generation Tiguan essentially being like a GTI SUV. The second generation really didn't have that feel at all because it was just much more Americanized with a much larger interior, a lot less power. And this model here got some upgrades. When we first drove it, we really liked how the handling felt. Sadly, however, this turbo model gets no upgrades to the suspension or the steering system, which technically isn't a bad thing because this is already one of the more Teutonic and premium driving cars. So we're going to try another 0 to 60 run here, but this time I'm not going to brake torque it. We're in sport for the transmission, sport for the drive mode, and let's see on this straight stretch if we can get a slightly better time. We got 7.05 seconds there, so pretty consistent. That's what also with it pretty much on level ground. This is solid performance. I also really like the way the engine sounds. It, to me, doesn't sound quite as artificial and synthesized as the regular turbo engine as opposed to the Tiguan Turbo. Volkswagen didn't mention that they changed anything with the exhaust, but what they did add are paddle shifters. So the 2025 model did not have paddles, only this model has the paddles. And while they are plasticky and like not really satisfying to use, it is nice that at least that they are there, and it kind of gives you some engagement if you guys want to take control of the transmission on your own. The engine, when I'm using the paddles, doesn't sound too great there on the downshift, but when you upshift with the vehicle, it does produce like a much more satisfying noise. Because think about like the CVTs and hybrids you'll get from a lot of its competitors. This is definitely much improved. This feels more like an enthusiastic compact SUV, so I really appreciate that. Now, the rest of the driving dynamics of this car, we'll switch it into just its drive mode setting here. There's no adaptive suspension and no air suspension, so regardless of the drive mode, it's not going to affect the ride quality or the handling dynamics, although I do notice the steering in this car gets a little bit artificially heavier in this sport mode, but it has very much like son of GTI steering in this car. It's very quick, snappy, and responsive. The suspension is a little bit softer than I would like it to be. It produces a little bit more lean in the corners, but at the same time, I really like the feel of this car. It has that Teutonic German feel, like it's built really well. It's designed for driving enthusiasts. It really reminds me of, you know, the way Volkswagens were in the past, where they very much felt like budget Audis. This car feels even nicer to me than the current Q5, which is not a good thing. You should really not be seeing like a Volkswagen that feels nicer. In fact, look in front of us. There is somebody who actually bought a 2025 Tiguan SE. And remember, even the base SE trim comes with a lot of equipment. So you don't necessarily need to get the top version, but now you guys know the top version will shave around 1.5 seconds off the 0 to 60 time. So I'm hoping eventually Volkswagen will just make this engine a standard, but at the same time, most people in this segment really don't care to have this extra power. The base motor will be fine for about 80% of people who buy a car in this segment, but this is definitely designed for the enthusiast, and it's nice to see that it'll keep up with the hybrid-powered CR-V, the hybrid-powered RAV4. The Mazda CX-50 Turbo, that's the model that has almost as much power as this car, but a little bit more torque. Is a little bit quicker 0 to 60, although I'll wait until I get one of these back home to retest, because we might get a slightly faster time back home as opposed to here in Detroit, even though we are at least driving this car at sea level. In terms of fuel efficiency, Volkswagen also mentioned how this car has the same gas mileage combined rating as the base engine. So at 22 city, 29 highway, 25 combined, it has a 15.5 gallon fuel tank. The trip computer is showing around 420 miles of range, although theoretically, if you do the math and the size of the fuel tank, 350 should be the real world number. Eventually, I'm hoping a hybrid model will improve on that significantly. In terms of visibility, the Tiguan has really good sight lines. I can see out of the front and the side and the rear quite nicely, although Volkswagen still does not offer a digital camera rear mirror on this car. A lot of the German brands have been apprehensive about offering that. I also love this bigger display. Now keep in mind, this is the only trim that gets the 15.5 or the 15-inch display, which is around technically among the biggest in the segment. I think the GMC Terrain has also a 15-inch display, but I love the way this is oriented. I mean, check out the way CarPlay looks over there. This is, you know, my phone connected. It just offers very quick and snappy responses. The resolution is fantastic. I still don't love the touch-sensitive buttons here, but at the same time, they're now illuminated at least, and when you combine it with the screen over here, I mean, this to me, this infotainment system feels just as nice, if not nicer, than Audi's digital, you know, stage cockpit layout, which technically has a smaller mid-display. This model does include a head-up display as well. I had to take off my sunglasses so I can make sure I could see it. So there's a lot of features that this car includes. So basically, if you guys were looking at a 2025 model, the 2026 basically, you know, has the same equipment. Volkswagen added paddle shifters, but with the increase in the power with the turbo engine, it really, you know, satisfies that thirst that I had for more power with this car. It really gives you the performance that kind of matches the handling of this vehicle. Although I will mention, if you guys are comparing this car to an Audi Q5, because remember the Audi Q5, the new version, also has the same 268 horsepower, although it has less torque. The Audi does have a dual clutch transmission, which in theory should make it faster. The last one that I tested, not for a full week, but at the first drive, did 5.8 seconds 0 to 60, which is technically a second faster than this, which is good because the Audi model should be faster than this car. But regardless, for those of you who have had your eye on the Tiguan and you've been waiting for the turbo model to come out, which they are heading to dealerships next week, basically, it probably was a good thing that you waited, because this is definitely the powertrain that the car has been begging for. And it's nice that Volkswagen is giving the people essentially what they're asking for, and that's more power in their mainstream compact SUV. So to refresh your memory, this right here is the original Volkswagen Tiguan. It was definitely a little bit too small for the American market. In fact, this vehicle is about the same size as the current subcompact Volkswagen Taos, and its backseat space certainly reflects that. I'm 5'7". It's not horrible, but at the same time, if you have friends that are over 6 feet tall and you also have a bunch of stuff, this vehicle simply was too small, and its sales numbers also reflected that, because Volkswagen at their peak managed to sell only around 43,000 units back in 2015. Typically, they sold between 25 to 30,000 units. Now, when the all-new second generation came out, this is exactly what Americans wanted. It's just not exactly what what enthusiasts wanted, because this car got slower, it got much larger, it lost a lot of that Teutonic German sporty handling that people loved about the Tiguan, but at the same time, you also got this massive back seat upgrade, which, as you can see, compared to the first generation, there's just so much more space for me to stretch out. The floor is not completely flat, but remember, these seats also had the ability to kind of slide forward and back, and they also had the recline function, which the first gen also had as well, because it had an available third row. This is the reason why Volkswagen managed to sell almost 110,000 units of this second generation from 2019 and in 2021. Now, of course, in contrast, this is the third generation model, the one that we've been talking about as I drop my cell phone, but this is the model that Volkswagen says is supposed to be the Goldilocks, because this model, Volkswagen basically took everything we like about the second generation in terms of the space, but they've combined it with the sportier handling dynamics, the extra power. And as you guys saw, that extra power made a big deal, because we got 0 to 60 in just under 7 seconds, about a second and a half faster versus the base powertrain. It also makes it about as fast as the hybrid options from a lot of its competitors. The interior has an Audi-like feel with a lot of high-end touches, a roomy back seat, a relatively spacious cargo area, and a design that screams baby Touareg vibes, and it's been working extremely well. So I'll be curious to see what Volkswagen ends up doing as we go into the next model year of this current generation, because last year Volkswagen sold around 94,000 units. With the updates they've made, I really want to see them do between 150,000 to 200,000 units, because remember, the segment leaders like the RAV4 and CR-V do well over 400,000 units, and eventually Volkswagen says they're planning to add a hybrid. But in general, if you guys are looking at this space, this model needs to make it to the top of your list. And when you're also looking at the pricing, this is where the new Tiguan is also very competitive, because the 2026 model years are heading into dealerships basically next week, and pricing starts at just under $31,000, around $30,805 for the base SE with front-wheel drive. Volkswagen charges around $1,500 for all-wheel drive. Now, most of you are probably gonna upgrade to the SE trim level with the kind of upgrades that it gives you. That model is gonna start around $3,000 higher. There's also the SE R line or SE Black Edition, that basically gives you the R-Line packages, the sporty bits with some upgrades as well to the inside. That's around $38,000. Again, $1,500 extra if you guys want all-wheel drive. However, this model here, the top trim has been selling extremely well for Volkswagen. And basically they said, if you want this trim model here, it starts at around $43,000, just over 43 grand. It's around $2,300 more versus last year's model that had the lower output engine. So basically, for $2,500 extra, Volkswagen gives you an extra nearly 70 horsepower, the paddle shifters, and significantly better performance. So that seems like a win-win situation. When you add in the black roof that the avocado green model that we tested had, the $1,400 destination charge, you're looking at an as-tested price of $44,955. So just under 45 grand, again, makes it the most expensive Tiguan I've ever seen. But at the same time, if you're comparing it to a fully loaded Mazda CX-50 or a fully loaded Toyota RAV4 hybrid, this model is actually around the same price, and remember, it finally has the performance it needs to be considered more closely along the lines of like a GTI SUV. Still not quite a full-on GTI, but I think Volkswagen has essentially knocked it out of the park. So if you guys are looking for a compact SUV that feels more like an Audi, that finally has the performance that it needs to kind of match the vibes you were getting in your GTI, you need to put this vehicle at the very top of your list. Well, all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my very detailed overview on the brand new 2026 Volkswagen Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.